Hey, good morning. I am so happy that you all were able to join us today. Today's seminar is on how to land on your feet after divorce. I have been practicing as a divorce lawyer for over 26 years. And one of the things that I really like to help my clients do is prepare for what happens when the divorce is over. So going through a divorce can be a really difficult and stressful time in life. And one of the big things that causes that stress is all of those unknowns. There's so much that you might not know, and it can really cause that time period to be incredibly stressful. And one of the ways that we can help to minimize that stress is to start answering is to start answering those unknowns and fill in as many of the blanks for your future as you can. So of course, some of those big unknowns might be, where are you going to live? What is your financial situation going to look like? Where will your children live? Who will your children live with? And some of these things you might be able to work out an agreement with your spouse. Some of them you can't, but as much as possible, we want to start filling in some of that information. And we do that by looking around and deciding some of those things in advance now. And that can really help to alleviate a lot of the stress. Now, there are some things that you're not going to be able to know before the divorce is over. For instance, if you and your spouse cannot agree on custody of the children, well, you don't really know who they're going to be living with as you're going on. And to a certain degree, you've got to just practice acceptance and kind of relaxing and recognizing that you might not like everything that's going to happen, but we're going to control everything that we can. We're going to fill in as many of the unknowns as possible. And by accepting the things that we can't change, again, you can start to reduce a lot of the stress that you're going to be feeling. So one of the things that you want to look to ask yourself is, what do you want your life to look like afterwards? And if you, for instance, want to live in a certain school district, well, we're going to start looking at homes that might be in that area. If you're going to be leaving the marital residence and you have a lot of stress on, you don't know where you're going to go, well, let's start looking into what some of those areas can look like and what housing is available. And you want to decide now, what do you want out of your life? And by that, I mean, when you got married, you had a plan for what the rest of your life was going to look like. And now when you're facing divorce, it might feel like, well, a lot of those plans have disappeared and they're gone. And we can help to make the divorce process less frightening by reevaluating and starting to think, okay, well, when would you want to retire? Where would you want to go? Focus on what you want and what is going to be important to you. Is it important to you what school your child goes to or what holidays you have? And we can sit down together and kind of look at the different things that get divided into a divorce and start to make some priorities for you on what are the things that matter to you, because not the same things don't matter to everybody who is going through a divorce. For instance, for some people, I've represented some people that, a particular week during the summertime or, a family reunion that was held every year was a really big deal and very, very important. The ability to make medical decisions might be something that matters a whole lot. Perhaps your child has ADD, and making sure that you're the one that helps care for and make those medical decisions might be something that really matters. And we can pick out those things that don't, and those things that don't matter so much, you can quit worrying about. Now, finances in a divorce tend to be a little tricky for everybody. And that's because no matter how much or how little you earn, or if you're the member of the marriage that is, the major wage earner, or if you've been largely dependent on your spouse, your household has been set up to sustain one household on the income that was coming in. And even if you're the one earning the majority of the income, or even if you've got a relatively high income, well, you're now looking at sustaining two households, and you're looking at that, those finances being divided. And so for pretty much everybody going through a divorce, you're going to want to develop a new comfort level looking at those finances and creating a financial plan for the future. So what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to start building a post-divorce budget as quickly as you can. So if you're going to be paying child support, well, we can very early on tell you how much that child support is likely to be. And once that big thing has been addressed, we can start filling in a lot of the other numbers. If you're going to be receiving child support, again, in most cases in the state of Texas, the amount of child support tends to be fairly cut and dry, unless you have somebody who's self-employed. Now, if you have a family-owned business or someone who's self-employed where the income fluctuates a bit, well, then you might have a little bit of unknown when it comes to child support as well. But we can look at your numbers and we can start giving you pretty early on some really good ideas of what to expect. So once you know what that child support figure is going to be, the next really big unknown is usually the living situation. Now, in this, I really encourage my clients to sit down and take a hard look at that marital residence. And is the marital residence something that they're going to really want when the divorce is over? And most people beginning, it's very common for them to say, I want to end up with the house. And this is one area where it can be a really good thing that divorce isn't an instantaneous process. It takes, under the very best circumstance, 2 months. Under the worst circumstance, you could look at over a year. Sometimes that's good because it gives you an opportunity to reevaluate. And when you're putting together a post-divorce budget, if you've got those child support numbers, whether you're paying or whether you're receiving filled in, you can start to really look at, when you're looking at just your income, when you're looking at those child support numbers, is the marital residence really the best situation for you? And in a lot of cases, it isn't. Now, a lot of times I see the parent that's the children are going to be living with holding on really, really hard to the idea of living in that marital residence. And I understand why. It tends to be because, well, the children, so much is changing already. I want to keep as much of their life the same as it was before as possible. And I can understand that. And if you can do that for your kids, that can be a great thing for them. But if you cannot afford that marital residence, or if it's going to make your divorce extremely acrimonious if you try to hold on to that marital residence, you might want to really think and put down some hard numbers, because your child is going to adjust much better to living in a new place than they will to living with a parent who is extraordinarily stressed out and worried and possibly facing foreclosure and wondering how they're going to pay the bills or at terrible odds with the other parent. And a lot of times, if you get a new home for a new start based on the post-divorce budget, one where you know that you can be comfortable, you'll be amazed at how quickly the children can adjust to it. So I really encourage you, when you're putting together that budget, there's some guidelines, and I'll be happy to share some links for how much of your household you want to be contributing to the mortgage, but it really shouldn't be over 30 to 35% of your income. Because if it is, it's going to become difficult to sustain later. So the next thing that I would really encourage you to do is to take care of your emotional health. And going through a divorce is an extraordinarily difficult process. And that is true no matter how carefully you plan for it. Even if you're the one in the marriage that is really pursuing the divorce and wants the divorce, it's still a huge change in your life. And it is still something different than what you hoped for and planned for when you got married. And there's going to be some emotional adjustment to that. So there are some wonderful clinics. There's a divorce care clinic held in this area by a number of the larger churches that I've had a lot of clients find very helpful. I would encourage you, if you're having difficulty, to really consider seeing a therapist, even if it's something that you've never done before. Just sitting down and talking with someone who's not got kind of an axe to grind can be very reassuring, and it can be very helpful. A lot of times, the people in your life that are there for you and that support you feel like they can give you the most emotional support by being really mad at your about to be ex. And it might be that if you call up your sister or your mother or your best friend or, you know, whoever, your dad, you're talking to about your divorce, and you say, well, you know, I'm looking at where I'm going to live, and it looks like I'll really need to get a less expensive place, you know, and their reaction is, that's because of your stupid husband or your cheating wife. And if they'd never done this, you'd never be facing this. And this is a horrible thing for you to have to deal with. And they think that they're being there for you, and they are really trying to help you out. And it might even make you feel good to hear that. But as far as helping you to be grounded and to be ready for the next stage in your life, you're going to find that it's really maybe not that helpful. So if you don't have a group or a friend or somebody that you can talk to that's not going to be angry or judgmental about what you're facing, you really might want to consider the idea of speaking with a therapist. And we can certainly recommend some that can do a good job of helping you to prepare for the future and to, you know, relax and take a little of the stress out of your life. So this next thing might come as a bit of a shock to you. When I say time to get moving, it's a great idea to exercise. And for a lot of my clients, I know that you're dealing with a ton right now. You know, you're looking into new housing, you're looking into new schooling. You don't have somebody to be there in the evenings when you get home to watch the children. Maybe you're looking for a part-time job, and you're thinking, the last thing in the world that I have time to do right now is to enroll in an exercise class. Well, I would really encourage you to do it anyway. And I will tell you that studies have shown that regular vigorous exercise is more effective at helping you to maintain a positive frame of mind than antidepressants. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with taking antidepressants. If you're having difficulty, I absolutely would encourage you to visit with a physician and get some help with that. However, even if you do that, don't forget to try getting some regular exercise. So I will tell you that I myself got divorced a long time ago at this point. I guess I first separated from my first husband back in December of 2011. And I have always thought that this was an example really of God looking out for me and helping me out. But my children had asked for a membership in a local martial arts studio as a Christmas gift. And because I had a number of children, it was the same cost to get a family membership that included everyone. Well, I never would have gotten a martial arts membership for myself if I weren't already getting the family membership. But I thought, it'll be fun. I'll go to some of those with my kids and it can be something that we do together. Well, shortly after Christmas, it turned out I was unexpectedly facing a divorce. I was dealing with a ton of unknowns. And I already had started going to these martial arts classes. And my kids did love, it was Taekwondo, and they did like the Taekwondo studio. And I had a number of my children do it for a few years. But I'll tell you that none of them did it for as long or as often as I did. And when I started, I even thought to myself that, well, when I get up to green belt sparring, I don't think I would like that. So I probably won't go beyond it. Well, I got to the green belt and I loved sparring. And it was such a wonderful release of energy to, be doing the practice punches. And you don't have to be picturing your spouse's face, although if you want to, you certainly can. But just the idea that you're doing these vigorous, controlled movements, it's a wonderful way to get your mind in focus. And you end up leaving feeling great. And the other thing that I found out about the martial arts classes that I took is I made a number of really good friends during it. And as a wife and a mother for a long time prior to beginning my divorce, when you've been part of a coupleship for a long time, most of your friends know you as a couple, right? And maybe a lot of them, you even hang out together as a couple, or, you've got, of course, your children's friends, parents, but maybe you don't have a lot of friends that are just directly friends for you. And joining regular exercise classes can be a great way of forming a network of people that don't know you as someone going through divorce or as a part of a marriage. They just know you as an individual and as you. So the other thing you want to look into is developing some hobbies. And again, you might be thinking, I've got so much to do. This isn't something that I have time for. But for instance, if you are doing things with your children, maybe if the children are living primarily with the other parent and you're not used to having a lot of one-on-one time with your children, you might be thinking, well, what do I do with them? If you take up a hobby, one that they can enjoy as well, maybe camping, maybe gardening, woodwork, something like that, it can be a great way to develop some closeness with your kids. And it gives you something to talk about with them that is not emotionally charged. It can be very tempting to discuss with your children your frustrations with the other parent. And to a certain extent, the divorce is something that you're going to talk about with your children because it's the biggest thing going on in their life, right? And just like we talked about how you have all of these unknowns that are causing you stress, well, they're doing the same thing for your kids. And so if you can kind of help them to frame the future and to understand what's going to happen, that's helpful. But beyond that, you really don't want to discuss your divorce with your kids. You don't want to talk about with them about how their mother told lies or how their father has walked out on the family. And doing activities with them, finding other things that you enjoy. Maybe it's just, watching through a series of movies together gives you things that have no emotional charge that your kids can talk with. And a lot of times, let's say you're doing gardening together with your children, you might find you're out there pulling weeds or whatever, and they start talking to you about the other things going on in their life or how they feel. And it can be a real bridge to build a close bond with your kids. So before I encouraged you, you remember to talk with some people who didn't have an emotional stake in your divorce so that you could help to see the situation objectively. But it is also really nice to have some people that have your back. And it is something that can help you to deal with what you're going through. Particularly if you weren't looking for this divorce and maybe you didn't see it coming, maybe you feel like, wow, the person that I loved the most in the whole world has really betrayed me and walked out on me. Well, you have other relationships too. There are other people that you know and love and that love you and care about you. And you want to take some time and reach out to them. And sometimes if you're in a relationship, particularly a troubled relationship, maybe you've resisted sharing details of your personal life with some of these people. And now when you're going through the divorce and contemplating and preparing for the divorce is a good time to try to strengthen those relationships and to make sure that you spend time with the other people in your life. Call your parents if your parents are still alive. Go visit them. Call up your siblings. If you've been married a long time and your children are older, make sure that you have individual relationships with them. Make time to spend with just one child at a time, taking them out to lunch. Connect with your close friends, people you knew in college, people that you knew in high school. Give them a call and see if you can't just spend some time to hang out with them. And remember, you're more than part of a couple. You are an individual as well. And by rallying those people and gathering them around you, you can help to remind yourself of that and put yourself in a healthier place. So that's part of expanding your support system. Most people really only have 2 or 3 people that they feel like they could call if they were really upset. If they're facing an emergency or a trauma, and probably your spouse has been part of that really small inner circle. Well, chances are there are other people in your life that are willing to be part of your inner circle. If you reach out to them, I would encourage you to do that. Also, you want to expand your outer circle, right? We've talked about the people that you call in times of an emergency, but it's also a great idea to expand your network of people that you'd call to hang out with after work, to meet up with for a drink after a hard day, or to go to a game or a movie with. You want to strengthen and expand networks. I already mentioned the divorce care support groups. Also, exercise support groups. You can try alumni groups. You could, if you don't go to church can actually be a wonderful place to get a support group. And if you're not religious, obviously, I'm not trying to push you in that direction. But if you haven't been to church in a long time, now might be a great place to go back And you'll probably find some people there that are really glad to see you and willing to listen to you and to be part of your support network. So the next thing that you want to do to help to prepare for the future is plan something specifically to look forward to. So right now we're looking at the beginning of April and you've got summer coming up ahead. Maybe you want to plan something fun and engaging to do for the summer. Plan something to do with your children if you have children, and also plan something that might be just for you. If you're getting divorced, one of the things that and you've got children, you probably have not had a whole lot of time without your kids. And sometimes that can seem like really lonely time, but it can also be refreshing. It can be time to be an adult and to not be, and to focus on your own needs. So plan something to do with your children to look forward to, something that maybe a trip somewhere, maybe an activity that you do together that you can sit down with and look at with them and that you can get them excited about. And then also, I would really encourage you to plan something for just yourself. I'm looking into doing a triathlon. You could also, whether it's something that you want to accomplish or maybe just something on your bucket list or a trip, something that you have always wanted to do and never had an opportunity to. By the way, if you have any specific questions that I don't address as we go along, if you look at the Zoom chat, you have the ability to send me a message and where it says more and the 3 buttons, I'd encourage you to do that. And I definitely will address any specific questions that you have. So this next thing, don't wince. I know you've heard this phrase, but a new normal. And in this age of COVID, we're all thinking that a new normal means masks and social distancing, but it also means planning a future for after your divorce. And to some extent, a new normal might just be taking off your wedding ring and getting used to not wearing it anymore. Taking down family photos that you have hanging in the house and rearranging your decorations to where you don't have gaping holes sitting there. Maybe you have pictures of just you and your kids. Maybe you have pictures of things that you always liked. Maybe you redecorate your home because you and your spouse didn't have the same decorating tastes, and now you get to have something that is focused on what you like. I'd also encourage you to go ahead and start thinking in terms of my ex-wife or my ex-husband. And sometimes saying those words can be a little difficult and might catch you off guard. You just practice thinking that way. Now, as far as your children are concerned, you're going to read a whole lot about how difficult divorce can be for children. And I want to tell you that you have a whole lot of control over how difficult the divorce is on your children. And it can be much easier if your focus is on making it easier for them. So the question comes, how do you do that? Well, one of the things that you do is when it comes time to drop your children off or to pick your children up, or you're waiting for the other parent to come and get them, don't act like it's the end of the world. And I know you might be thinking, I'm going to miss my kids so much, maybe if they're going to stay with the other parent and you're not going to see them for a week, you're thinking, how am I going to go a whole week without my children? And you might think that you need to tell your kids how sad you are and how heartbroken you are. that you're not going to be seeing them. But if you think about it, what you're telling them is that they're causing you to feel sad, and your children's presence or lack of presence is making you upset and sad. And instead, try to remove it from the realm of the divorce and the emotional charge that might come with that. Think if you were sending your child to spend a week at your favorite summer camp, or you were sending your child to stay with your parents and they were thrilled to have them and they were taking them to Disney World. Well, are you going to tell your kids you're going to miss them? Absolutely you are. But you're not going to tell them with tears running down your face, and you're not going to tell them with your voice shaking, and you're not going to tell them again and again and again, I'm going to miss you. You might say, oh, sweetheart, I'm going to miss you, but you are going to have so much fun. I know that your mom or your dad is really looking forward to seeing you, and I can't wait to hear about everything you've done when you come back. And I know that they're going to take really good care of you. So if you've been the primary caretaker of your child, you might be really nervous about the other parent taking them for a time, especially if you're looking at them taking them for maybe a more extended period of time. I've had a lot, particularly mothers, say, he's never taken care of the kids for more than 2 hours. How's he supposed to do it for, 9 days over spring break? They're going to be in so much trouble. If your child's parent loves them and they don't want that child to be miserable. And a lot of times, if you send off that child and you do it without being angry at the other parent or telling the other parent that you don't trust them, and you just tell them, hey, if you have any problems, give me a call. Or if, it gets to be too much or you need a break, give me a call, or you can bring them back. You'd be amazed at how often that can be a huge relief to the other parent to know. Maybe they're scared to death too at the idea that, wow, I'm going to have the kids for 9 days or 30 days. And, that's really frightening for me. And what do I do with them during that time period? It can take a lot of the stress off them to know, if they miss their other parent too much, we can call them up and we can set up a little visit for some time period in there. So if you are the parent that has done most of the parenting, don't tell your kids you're worried and scared about them. Reassure them that their other parent loves them, and you know that they've planned some great stuff for them. And you can tell them that you're going to be thinking about them, that you're going to be super excited to hear what they did and how things went when they come back. And then when you call them, I want you not to ask them if they're okay. At least not more than once, and not right off the bat. Because if you think about it, if you're a child and you're with one parent and the other parent keeps calling, are you okay, sweetie? Are you all right? What are you being fed? What are you wearing today? Well, the message that you're sending is that you don't think they're safe over there, and that you don't think that the other parent loves them enough to be taking care of them. And that is causing a lot of stress for your children, and it's going to worry them. The other thing that I really want to reassure all parents about, whether you're the what we call the primary parent, or the parent the child lives with, or you're the parent that picks the child up for parenting time with them. A lot of times when it's time to go back to the other parent, your child might get upset. And maybe they cry, maybe they say, I'm going to miss you so much. And you think, this is an example. This is an indication that the other parent's doing a bad job. They're not taking care of them. They're not seeing enough of me. Well, the truth is that change is hard for kids. And when a child is engaged in doing something, let's say whether it's watching their favorite TV show or playing a video game or reading a book, and somebody comes in and says, you've got to put that down, it's time to go. Resistance to doing that is really natural. And resistance to going and having to pick up and leave and go somewhere else, it's kind of unsettling. And it doesn't necessarily mean that the child doesn't want to see the other parent. And it doesn't necessarily mean that they're not happy over there. And a lot of times what we find out is we'll find out that maybe you've got children, that are, say, like 7 to 9 years old. Mom comes in, hey, dad's going to be here soon. No, I don't want to go. Do I have to go? Mom, find out. Can I really not go? Well, you might probably be really surprised to learn that after they spend the weekend with dad and dad's like, okay, it's time to go back to mom's, those same kids are saying, oh, I don't want to go. Do I have to go? It's just that the children are resistant to change. And sometimes they're doing it because they sense that you really want to know that they miss you. And when you're asking your kids all the time, don't you miss me? What you're telling them is that you kind of want them to be a little unhappy, that if they're really happy at the other parents, maybe they should feel guilty about that. And maybe that's an indication that they don't care enough about you. So the other thing that I would really encourage you to do to make the visitation go well is make sure that you have everything at your house that your child is going to need. So even if the child spends most of the time at the other parent's home, have clothes and toothbrush and toys and activities at your home so that they know that this is their home too. And the less the child has to pack with them to go back and forth, the more comfortable they are going to be about it. So the next thing that I would really encourage you to do is talk with your almost ex-spouse about some of those parenting decisions. A lot of things that people end up arguing with, for instance, like sports, if you want to sign the child up for baseball every weekend, if you put in a call to the other parent beforehand and say, by the way, I want to sign them up for baseball. Would you be okay with taking them on your weekends, or I can pick them up and bring them if you don't want? It can take a lot of the conflict out of that situation and make it a lot easier to co-parent in the future. So the other thing, as far as getting clear about your life, is be very careful about making comparisons to friends that you have that are going through divorce. Just like your marriage was different than anybody's marriage, your divorce is going to be different from anyone else's divorce as well. And maybe a situation that worked out really well for a family member of yours or a friend of yours, you and your ex-spouse might work out a different situation. For instance, in some houses, the child doesn't send a suitcase back and forth at all. All the clothes are at both homes. Whereas some people find it a lot easier, and the child finds it comforting to have the exact same things go back and forth between the houses. So you need to be sure that the decisions that you make are about your life and your family, and they're not based on what somebody else is telling you should necessarily happen. So looking at all the different things that you have to juggle, in getting ready for a divorce. You might find yourself really even second guessing your decision and thinking, is this the right thing? That's a call that nobody but you can make. And I mean nobody. I mean that your best friend can't tell you whether or not this is the right thing to do. And your parents can't tell you whether or not this is the right thing to do. And quite honestly, your divorce attorney can't tell you whether this is the right thing to do. But what I can tell you is that the fact that there's a lot of hard things to get over as you go through and get ready for the divorce doesn't mean that it's not the right thing to do. So I will tell you, I've got 5 children myself. And I did all kinds of soul searching and going back and forth when I got divorced. In fact, even as a divorce attorney, I filed for divorce and then I dropped it and we tried again. And I ended up filing for divorce again because I really, really wanted it to work, right? All 5 of my children tell me without any hesitation at all that their lives are much better because I got divorced. And the important thing for you to remember is you're not choosing between the marriage that you thought you were going to get when you were standing at the altar saying, I do, and divorce. That's not the 2 options. The options that you have is your marriage the way it is right now and divorce. And if your spouse is not willing to work with you to change things, or if you've tried and you know things are not getting better, don't think that you have to stay in that marriage just because the divorce process is difficult or painful. You're not choosing between an ideal marriage and divorce. You're choosing between the marriage that you have and the situation that you're in. So, is it difficult? Yes. It doesn't mean that it's the wrong thing. And in almost all cases, you will find that things will get easier. Almost everybody finds that as time goes on after the divorce, they say time heals all wounds. I'm not going to say that there won't be some areas that are painful to think about, but in general, absolutely, it's going to get easier. It's going to get better. The place that you're in right now, thinking about the divorce process or filing for the divorce or going through the divorce, you're in that valley. And yes, there's going to be a little more time in that valley, but then after that, you're going to find out that your life will start to get better and better. And it's within your control, and you can choose what you want it to look like. And you can make your post-divorce life look much better than where you are now. So, what are some of the things that you can do to make sure that your post-divorce life looks as good as it can? The number one thing that I'm going to tell you is you want to avoid being toxic during your divorce as much as you can. If you have children with your almost ex-spouse, divorce is not the end. They are still going to be part of your life. You're going to see them when your children get married. You're going to see them when your children graduate. You want to be able to be comfortable in the same room together. Ideally, you're going to see each other at sporting events, and you don't want to have more acrimony than necessary. So I know that there's a lot of really painful things going on in your life right now. To the greatest extent possible, you want to refrain from throwing mud. And even if your spouse starts throwing mud, I would encourage you to try to take the high road. Now, very few people go through a divorce and never say anything nasty to the other party. And very few people go through divorce and they don't badmouth their spouse to their best friends, to their family. But you can control how much that happens. And just because maybe you're upset one day and you unload on your friend group all the terrible things that your spouse did, that doesn't mean that you have to keep bringing it up. And there are some positive things about your spouse too, or you wouldn't have married them. So I would encourage you to try to keep some of those positive things in mind, particularly if you have children together. You might even make a list of some of the positive attributes about your spouse that you can bring up to the kids. So for instance, my first husband is really good at mechanics and cars. And I will tell you, for instance, that as my children got older and they got their driver's licenses, one of the things that I said is, hey, make sure that your dad takes you driving too. And, I'm going to, send your dad a message, make sure that he practices with you how to change a flat tire and how to keep a car in good shape, because that's just something that he's really, really good at. Or when my kids have history questions, I still have one minor child, very quick to tell them, you know what, on that history essay, you might try asking your father, because wow, he is really good at that. There is something positive that you can say about your spouse, and you might practice saying some of them, particularly to your kids. So moving on after your divorce, well, part of moving on after your divorce is, of course, building new and other relationships. And those might be friendships and they might be new romances. If you don't already have a significant other in your life, I would really encourage you not to go looking for one yet. Now, if your spouse has already moved on, maybe they have a boyfriend or girlfriend, it might be really difficult for you to be sitting there thinking, well, why should they have somebody and I don't? When you bring those other people into the divorce, you greatly increase the acrimony of the divorce. You increase the bad feelings that go along with the divorce. And it makes it much more difficult to build a positive co-parenting relationship afterwards. And also, it might just be, quite honestly, as your divorce lawyer, that it's a key part of my strategy that your spouse has been cheating and you haven't. And we lose a lot of the positive impact on that if you go out and do it. Now, if you've already got a boyfriend or girlfriend, I'm not saying you necessarily need to break up with them. Maybe you and your spouse have both moved on. You want to sit down and have that conversation with your divorce attorney. But to the extent that you can, I would really encourage you to hold off on forming those new romantic relationships until your divorce process is complete. So I will tell you that here at the Bolton Law Firm, we really try to help our clients prepare for the future. And one of the ways that we can do that, we can help you find, for instance, a mortgage broker that is really, really good at helping people qualify for a mortgage, even in the middle of a divorce, even with less income based on child support. I can also put you in touch with financial planners that specialize in divorce. I can give you numbers for support groups, divorce care groups, people that can be helpful to your children. If there is anything that I haven't covered that you'd like some more information about, we have a lot of resources. And I'd encourage you to reach out and ask. Let us know what it is that you need. We communicate really regularly with our clients through that divorce process. We're going to talk to you every 2 weeks at a dead minimum, and we want to hear what's going well for you. How's the visitation working? How is the child support working? Is there anything that we need to add to this, or are there any changes that we need to make? And please, we really mean it. Let us know. We want to be of help to you. And if we don't have a resource for you, we will find one, because this is what we do. You know, we help people to plan for a happy life at the end of their divorce. And if there's anything that we're not doing that could help to do that for all of our clients, we want to know. So I would really encourage you to contact us and send an email. Let us know. You can send it to info@boltonlaw.com. Or if you're a current client of ours, reach out to your paralegal or the attorney assigned to your case. We can give you lists of resources and things that can be helpful to you. So I really appreciate you all joining me today for this webinar on how to land on your feet after divorce. I will be doing a series of these in the future, both preparing for divorce and preparing for life after divorce. So I'm going to plan another seminar with these basic, points for the near future. So I'd really love to get your feedback. Let me know if there was something that you wanted to hear about that I didn't cover, or if I went on way past the point where you wanted to hear and you're like, oh, Ruby, enough already, move on. You don't need to tell me that. Let me know, and hopefully my next webinar, I can do a better job. So I would love to help you out. I see a message. If you are with another attorney and, they're doing a good job for you, by all means, keep my contact info. And if you need to modify your decree later, I'd be happy to help you out. If you've got questions about what's happening now and you'd really like to sit down and talk with somebody from our legal team about what's going on, you can do that without changing attorneys and get some more information. So please do let me know. I really appreciate your joining me, and hopefully you'll reach out, and I would love to hear from you in the future. So thank you so much, and good luck to you.